Since the A90 Supra was announced, a lot of talk has come up about its engine and whether it'll be anywhere near as good as the 2JZ. You don't have to look very hard to find a lot of people on the internet saying that Toyota should have just used the 2JZ from 20 years ago, or maybe the BMW N54 or N55. Now with tuners starting to get their hands on the A90 Supra and a lot of interest being raised in the B58 engine that it uses, the question remains, which one is better, the 2JZ or the B58? Let's dive in and find out. Before diving into the differences of each engine, we should briefly cover the basics because these engines are separated by 20 years of engineering and they came from two different companies. As you probably know, the 2JZ is the second engine in Toyota's JZ engine family, and it was developed at the time when Toyota just over-engineered and overbuilt everything that they produced. It's a 3-liter inline-6 engine with a bore of 86 millimeters and a stroke of 86 millimeters, making it a square engine. There are a handful of different versions of the 2JZ, but for this video we're going to talk about the 2JZ GTE, which was the top-of-the-line variant found in the old Mark IV Supra. Part of what made the 2JZ so powerful was its use of a twin-turbo system, which allowed it to output over 300 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque. Of course, this was during Japan's Gentleman Agreement, which limited auto manufacturers to produce cars under 300 horsepower, so it's widely argued that the 2JZ was actually underrated by Toyota and it made more power than they claimed. The 2JZ GTE was produced from 1991 to 2002. Its use in the Mark IV Supra is in part what has made it such a legendary engine. Of course, it's a great engine by itself, but with the rise in popularity of the Supra also came a rise in popularity of the 2JZ. The B58 is also a 3-liter engine like the 2JZ, but it's under square, meaning that the bore is 82 millimeters and the stroke is 94.6 millimeters. The under square design makes it inherently a less rev-happy engine, but it allows it to produce more low-end torque, which is something that a lot of consumers look for when they're shopping for a car. Just like the 2JZ, there are a handful of different versions of the B58, but for this video we're going to be talking about the version used in the A90 Supra, which is the B58 B30. This version of the B58 is advertised with a 335 horsepower output. However, it's already agreed that that's an underrated number, as a lot of tuners are finding more power than that through independent dyno testing. Alright, with that basic stuff out of the way, let's look at the bottom ends of each engine and compare them. The 2JZ features a cast iron block with a closed deck and a forged crankshaft. The piston and rods are very beefy and way overkill for the stock power output. Underneath the crankshaft you'll find a block girdle. Now the girdle helps improve block rigidity, but it also improves the strength of the bottom end. To help keep the pistons cool, the 2JZ uses piston oil squirters, which obviously just spray oil up at the bottom of the piston. One of the biggest differences between the 2JZ and the B58 block is the fact that the B58 is cast aluminum, not cast iron. Although cast aluminum isn't as strong as cast iron, it is much lighter and offers much better heat rejection. This is important because with the A90 Supra, Toyota wanted to keep the vehicle lightweight and keep the center of gravity low. So using a lightweight cast aluminum block was definitely the way to go. The B58 features a crankshaft girdle just like the 2JZ, which again just ties in the crankshaft main caps to the block skirts. The crankshaft is forged and very beefy, as are the pistons and rods. Now some tuners are already thinking that the OEM crankshaft in the B58 could probably hold up to 1,000 horsepower, but we're going to have to wait to see more testing be done before that's actually confirmed. And again, just like the 2JZ, the B58 features piston oil squirters to help keep the pistons cool. Put it simply, both the B58 and the 2JZ have very strong bottom ends, which are both capable of over 700 horsepower-ish, with the 2JZ being even more capable than that. People haven't been pushing the B58 engine for a very long time, so the absolute limits aren't fully known right now, and a lot of testing is still being done, with records being broken all the time on the stock bottom end. Moving from the bottom end to the top end, it's clear that the B58 has a plethora of modern upgrades compared to the 2JZ. Both engines feature a dual overhead camshaft design with variable valve timing, but that's pretty much where the similarities end. The 2JZ uses a shim over bucket design, which basically just has a camshaft lobe pressed down on a bucket which is resting on the spring. This is a very simple system, but it gets the job done. Some versions of the 2JZ feature Toyota's variable valve timing system, which allows camshaft timing to be changed on the fly. On the other hand, the B58 uses a roller rocker Valvetrain. Where it gets really complicated on the B58's Valvetrain is with the intake camshaft, which features 2 roller rockers and an eccentric shaft, which allows the rocker ratio to be changed on the fly. This system allows for more lift depending on what the ECU wants to do, and the B58 also features cam phasing, which allows camshaft timing to be changed on the fly. Other notable features of the B58 cylinder head includes the integrated exhaust manifold, which means that there are only 2 exhaust ports exiting the cylinder head rather than 6. Now, the big change with the B58's Valvetrain system is the fact that the timing chain and gears are all on the back of the engine rather than the front of the engine. Now, another big change you'll find on the cylinder head is the fueling system. When the 2JZ was being produced, direct injection for gasoline engines wasn't really much of a thing. So the 2JZ uses the standard injection system that we're all used to with gasoline engines. Of course, the B58 is a lot more modern, so it features direct injection, which allows fuel to be sprayed directly into the cylinder rather than at the back of the intake valve. Rather obviously, both of these engines are turbocharged, with the 2JZ GTE using a twin turbocharged setup and the B58 using a single twin scroll turbocharger. The twin scroll turbocharger is part of the reason for the integrated exhaust manifold. With those 2 exhaust ports, each exhaust port has 3 cylinders pushing exhaust gases through it. Each exhaust port drives a part of the twin scroll turbo. By using 3 cylinders for each part of the turbo scroll, scavenging is massively improved and overall efficiency is improved, on top of improving power and reducing turbo lag. Both the 2JZ and the B58 use really small turbochargers which don't produce a lot of top end power, but they do spool up quickly and provide a lot of low end power and really good throttle response. For anyone who wants to make big power with either of these engines, the stock turbochargers are quickly going to run out of steam and you're going to need to upgrade to a larger aftermarket turbocharger. Another cool feature of the B58's forced induction system is the fact that the intercooler is integrated within the intake manifold. Of course, reliability is pretty much paramount when it comes to developing an engine, and although Toyota helped BMW with the development of the B58, it's probably not going to be as reliable as the 2JZ in the long term. This is because the B58 features a lot of modern technologies, and while Toyota did a lot of work to make these as reliable as possible, the addition of them is just going to reduce reliability long term, on top of things like direct injection systems requiring more maintenance than traditional injection systems. Only time will really tell how reliable the B58 is in stock and modified forms. Not too surprisingly, a lot of people on the internet only seem to care about what an engine is capable of on a stock or built bottom end, and the 2JZ is well known for holding upwards of 800 horsepower on a totally stock bottom end and significantly more with a built bottom end. Now, already you can see people all over the internet and in YouTube comments and articles claiming that the B58 isn't as good of an engine because it can't hold up to some crazy high horsepower number on the stock bottom end. But in reality, what the engine can hold up to on a stock bottom end is not what makes it a good engine. Auto manufacturers aren't sitting there trying to develop their engines to withstand 1,000 horsepower on a stock bottom end. What the engine can survive on a stock bottom end isn't what's going to determine how it delivers power, how much power it makes, or how thermally efficient it is. So while the B58 is proving to be a very strong engine holding upwards of 700 horsepower and probably more on the stock bottom end, it's not as strong as the 2JZ's bottom end. But that's not to say that it's a weak engine, because it's a very strong engine. Toyota and BMW basically have no reason to build an inline 6 that can hold upwards of 900 or 1,000 horsepower. It's simply not in their interest. And for people wondering why didn't Toyota just develop their own new 3JZ inline 6, well, BMW is basically the only company making high quality inline 6 engines right now for sports cars. So why would Toyota go through all the pain of developing an entirely new engine when they could just partner up with the leading inline 6 manufacturer right now? Now, as far as what's capable with the help of aftermarket parts, it's not fully known right now. There are a lot of new tuners hopping on board with the B58, and it shouldn't be long until we're seeing B58 engines break the 1,000 horsepower mark. To wrap this up and put it simply, yes, the 2JZ is probably a little bit stronger than the B58 in stock form. And yes, it's probably also a little bit more reliable in stock form. But that's not to say that the B58 is a weak engine or an unreliable engine. And a lot of tuning and testing is still being done on the B58. And for all we know, it could end up being better than the 2JZ in the long run. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to get more information, I highly recommend watching the 2 engine breakdowns from Papadakis Racing. I'll link those 2 YouTube videos below. He breaks down both engines, both the B58 and the 2JZ, and gives you an in-depth look on the inside of them, and he's already working on building a 1,000 horsepower B58. Before you guys go and watch those videos, be sure to give this one a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.